got to witness this moment. I didn't join in, but I got to witness this moment where I just sat there and I just was in awe. And there was this big, beautiful bed, and it was just piled with people. There was probably like 9 or 10 people on a bed, and they were all having sex with each other. And the lighting was beautiful, and it was red, and the music was super sensual, and the energy in the room just kind of felt like this, like a velvet velour, erotic, sensual rose petal bliss.
What if the conversations we've been taught to avoid about sex, desire, and our bodies are actually the ones that set us free? Welcome to Sex Ritual Radio. I'm your host, Rose Heartsong. This is the show where sexuality, spirituality, and vital health meet, and where we explore the conversations most people consider oh so taboo. Each week, I sit down with fascinating voices exploring intimacy, relationships, healing, and human potential. Let's dive in.
Hello out there in the wonderful, wild world. This is Rose Heartsong, and you are listening to KXFM. This is Laguna's Community Radio. It's 104.7, and it is Sunday night. And on Sunday night, we talk about sex. So every single week here on Sex Ritual Radio. And this week, and we like to talk about sexuality, spirituality, vital health or holistic healing, and anything taboo. And I've been thinking a little bit about the taboo aspect lately. Is I love to challenge everything, in all honesty. And I've been thinking about the reason behind this is that I think a lot of times we live in a world in which we go along with what around us is telling us to do. Right? So if society, our families, our religion, our politics tell us we're supposed to believe a certain way, we just go along with it and we don't think about it. And yet what I've found is that doesn't really work the most effective for nourishment of the soul, vitality of the health, and peace in our mind, and for nourishment of joy and happiness and fulfillment. And yet we're all desperate for that. And so with the affirmation of my last name being Heartsong, one of the things that I've had the unique privilege of is being able to follow what lights me up and what my heart song is. And also, I have an erotic blueprint. For those of you who don't know what erotic blueprints are, it's the 5 different ways in which you have sex. And so, you know, in our society with porn as our primary education tool, a lot of times we're expected to, want to have sex through the lens of sexuality, right? Like nudity, just wanting to do it right away. But there's 4 other different types of ways that we experience sex and pleasure. And so I appreciate the experience of the taboo. So mine's kinky, and one of the fulfillments of my erotic blueprint is actually talking to you right here on the radio live about my sexuality, right? That's how I fulfill that, is through this is a taboo thing to do. Being on the radio talking about sex is taboo. I talk about a lot of things that are taboo, and so that fulfills that nourishment of erotic energy moving through me, not in a sexual way, but fulfilling that piece of the creative process of it, right? And so kinky is fulfilling the taboo, or experiencing and exploring the taboo and what nourishes the soul. For those of you who are interested in knowing what the other ones are, there's energetics, which really get turned on by the energy of sexuality. The idea of it. This could be like through texting or flirting or playing with the energy of it in the air. And then the sensuals really love to bring in all of the 5 senses. So that's sight, smell, taste, seeing, and hearing. And they love to have like the romance, right? And then there's the shapeshifters, and they're all four. They're sexual, they're erotic, they're kinky, they're energetic, and they are sensual. I'm not going to go deep into this episode, but I just kind of wanted to talk about the element of that. And taboo is I want to explain the definition of what taboo means. So, a taboo is a strong social or religious custom that forbids or avoids an action, word, or subject because people view it as offensive, sacred, dangerous, or unacceptable. Breaking a taboo often leads to strong social disapproval, shame, or punishment. Forbidden behaviors are the key characteristics of taboo is forbidden behaviors, actions, or topics that people should not do or talk about, which I'm really good at. I talk about things that we aren't supposed to talk about here on the radio. And I also do things that people aren't supposed to do. And I feel embodied and clear and grounded and confident in that. And a lot of times the key characteristics of taboos are cultural or social rules. So rules made by a group, a culture, or religious rather than a strict written laws, right? So a really good example of that is just the fact that I have my own last name. My last name was not my parents' last name. It's not my dad's last name. It's not my mom's last name. The fact that I have my own last name in general is taboo because whenever I tell people that, they go, oh my gosh, I didn't know that you could just put any name on your birth certificate. It is a social, cultural and social rule made by our society that's not a written law, right? And so, and the interesting thing about taboos is in one culture, it might be totally normal, and then in another culture, it can be completely taboo. Or in one religion, it can be completely normal, and another religion, it can be completely taboo. So there's social taboos, there's religious taboos, there's behavioral taboos. And in social taboos, there's usually socially, we don't talk about sex, right? Or money, salary, or a person's age in certain settings, especially women's age. And in religious taboos, it could be certain, you're not supposed to dress a certain way. There's certain foods you can't eat and so forth. And then, behavioral taboos are actions to go against a deep moral or cultural values of a community. A taboo, it's an interesting fine line because there's the art of being yourself and being embodied in yourself and being true to yourself. And you can be respectful about it. You don't have to be disrespectful. I have this practice really this is my truth. It doesn't need to be your truth, right? As I speak this into the world, I'm just sharing potential possibilities. This isn't me saying this is the way and you should believe what I say just because I have a microphone in front of my face and I'm talking to you out on the radio. That is not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to give you this permission slip to follow your own heart song and what lights you up so you can go out into the world and experience joy and pleasure and intimacy and bliss and connection and depth, because that is what we're deeply craving for as a society. And so, talking about taboo, we are going to be talking about a taboo topic. I have talked about it here before. So it's not a new topic, but it's a very active and alive topic because it went on last night. So I'm going to be exploring and diving into the psychology and sociological aspects of intimacy and community. And that includes a play party or a sex party that I went to last night. And so that is the taboo topic. But I also want to talk about the concept that 1 in 3 monogamous people have a fantasy about opening their relationship. The majority of people just will not act on it because of the taboo elements of what society believes it to be, right? And so I want to paint a picture because I think a lot of times the fear of what I'm talking about comes from this idea of not having an experience. And the lack of experience creates a fear that creates a taboo story that creates anxiety and overwhelm in the mind. And yet 1 in 3 monogamous people fantasize about opening their relationship one way or another. They're just not gonna act on it, right? And so there is a research data that was by Justin L. Lehmiller, which was published in the Archives of Sexual Behavior, and it was done on 822 Americans. They're all monogamous in the relationship. They're all in monogamous relationships in the time of the study. And the participants described their all-time favorite sexual fantasies, selected applicational themes such as multiple partners, taboo open relationships, and they reported the intent to act or intent to disclose to their partner. And so it was also cross-referenced against the 5 personality traits, and then relationship satisfaction and erotophilia. And the key findings were from the study that 30% of people, 32.6% of people named an open relationship as part of an all-time favorite fantasy. Of that group, 80% wanted to act on it. Those who had already shared or acted on it generally reported positive outcomes, met or exceeded expectations that actually improved their relationship. And search interest in the polyamory open relationships has risen steadily for over the last decade. Paired with the practice rate reality, only 4 to 9% of American adults are actively in open relationships. But that is also like kind of a gray zone, because as a sex, love, and intimacy coach, I work with a lot of couples who say that they're monogamous, but they still have threesomes or will go to sex parties. They just don't have sex with other people. And so what monogamy is quite broad in a lot of different words, right? So it's kind of it's genuinely a hard study to find facts on. And I also live in Southern California, and I understand that the society down here is different than other parts of the world and the country. So in my reality, I see it all over the place, and I also understand that I live in an alternative reality. So the gap from 32% saying they want it, but 4 to 9% actually acting on it is fantasies are often there's like a safe rehearsed space. It's the nervous system testing an idea before the body actually commits to it, right? So I really want to talk about that concept of fantasy, because a lot of people reach out to me with their fantasies, right? People share me things like, oh, is this normal? Is this a normal fantasy? Or a normal desire? That is the thing that I get most often. And my answer is the fantasy or desire going to harm you, create trauma to yourself or anyone else? Is it going to be destructive or creating, anything destructive to anyone, yourself or anyone else, in a negative way that creates trauma? Obviously, if it has anything to do with children under 18, that's a hard no, always. And is it consensual, right? Is it a yes on both ends and all ends? And if the answer, if it's not going to create trauma, it's over age, the age of an adult, and it's consensual, whatever your desires are, I want to celebrate them for you. I want to give you a little permission slip that they're okay, and that what you desire is normal, and that anything that's outside of the realms of like the taboo, what society says is too taboo, like if it's going to nourish your soul, then you should give it a shot. And if you don't like it, then great, like you didn't like it, but at least you tried something new, and I think a lot of times in the world of intimacy and sexuality, people kind of get in this consistent rut that they do the same patterns and the same body things. They like have an orgasm in the same way with the same toy in the same location, or they touch the body in the exact same way every single time because they know that works. But that's like it's almost like following a formula. And I don't think sex should be following a formula. I think it's one of the most blissful, fun, playful, incredible ways in which adults play. And talking about the way that adults play, one of the most fun and epic ways in which adults play is through a play party, which I went to last night, which was amazing, life-changing. And I'm teasing you because I'm not going to tell you about it yet. I'm going to tell you about a little bit more of the problem before I talk about the bliss. So the gap exists between the fantasy and reality a lot because of the nervous system, right? The brain gets in the way of the fears and the anxiety loops happen, and then we shut down and disconnect and run away. And the other problem is that the communication and regulation is not there. The ability to communicate and their desires and regulate their nervous system is not present. And then most people holding this fantasy also, they want to discuss it with their partners, but they're not sure how. They're too afraid. And desire really needs a dialogue. If you have a secrecy, there's shame or guilt or fear, it's going to shut us down. And so like being able to learn how to communicate clearly with grace on how it is that you desire, what you desire, and like being creative and playful and open about it. And that's one of the things I do with my clients is teach them how to communicate their desires to each other. And the other issue, the challenge that we have is called this really frustrating thing, an amazing thing, is called technology and our phones and our addiction to scrolling and our addiction to social media, right? The technology is creating more disconnection and lack of community, even though we think we're connected, than ever before. They're more connected through devices than they are from actually another body. And another bodies and bodies together creates a nervous system connection, which feeds the soul in a way that technology will never be able to. So there is a chronic low-grade nervous system loneliness, and it even lives highly inside of relationships. And that involves two people laying in bed at night, with Netflix on and their phones in their hands, scrolling on social media and not looking at each other, not connecting, not talking about real depth. They're in this kind of almost numb disconnection. And then they're like, oh, why don't we want each other? Why aren't we having really good sex? I want to have good sex, but we're not having good sex. And it's a pattern, right? I'm not saying that this pattern is easy to break. It is hard. It is challenging. It is super hard. We have like this digital intimacy that substitutes like texting, swiping, and so forth, that creates the illusion of connection without the co-regulation of the real bodies provide. And then the craving underneath the fantasy isn't just about sex. It's about touch and eye contact and being witnessed. And I think there's two aspects, right? I personally, if it's the right person, I don't think everyone should do this by any means at all. And I also think that society has made it so taboo that people don't even think about trying it. But like the open dynamics, having a threesome, going to a play party, being around other people having sex, they're wanting in a relationship. There's two aspects, right? The one is, I want to save my marriage through going to a sex party. It'll make the sex more spicy and fun and something new and something creative. And I'm going to fix my problems that are inside of my marriage by having sex with other people. And I do not think that's effective. I do not suggest that. I think that's not healthy. That'll create chaos. And I don't recommend that at all. I say fix the challenges of communication and intimacy in your marriage first. And then when it's nourished and healthy, then if you desire to explore, do it with the intention of nourishing the relationship, not fixing it. And then, so that's the second one, right? Like the nourishment of excitement and trying something new and spicing it up and playing and exploring in a way that feeds the soul. And like I said, if you don't want to do this, I ain't telling you to do it. I'm just giving you a taboo behind the scenes curtain of what's possible in the world and what you could potentially explore. I'm not telling you to explore it though. Be very careful. And if you're listening to me and there's fear coming up, and there's like this craving, a lot of times the fear comes from judgment, being afraid that their family member's going to find out, their community's going to find out, their religious beliefs are going to find out. There's a fear of rapture. If I ask for more, I might lose what I have, right? What if it messes up this relationship? Fear of not knowing how anymore. So, the inability to like be erotically expressed with somebody else. Like what if you can't figure it out, or what if it's not good, or so forth, right? And y'all, we are craving desperately, especially with the age of AI, especially with social media, our hearts and ourselves and our souls and our beings are so yearning deeply for connection and intimacy. And although I call myself a sex coach, I'm really an intimacy coach. I'm teaching people in their marriages. They can be married for 7, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 years. And the amount of depth and intimacy I teach them how to be in their marriage is beautiful and challenging and brave and courageous and magical. And so there is this beautiful experience I had last night, and because it is a private experience, I am going to do my absolute best to make sure to not give any details that would give away anybody that was there, but just kind of paint a picture of what's possible. I'm not telling you, as I said, I'm going to say it again, I am not saying you should go do this. I am showing you a world that exists so you can have a taste of it through my shared expression. And so I got invited to go to a play party, and a play party is a party in which adults go and they play. And usually the way that adults play, the best way, not usually, the most fun and exciting and magical way in which adults play is through sex. And I think that we've forgotten how to play with sex as a culture because we're not taught about sexual education. And so even if you're not interested in going to a play party or opening your marriage anyways, I hope that this episode is inspiring you to bring in more play and lightness and fun and exploration into the bedroom and into your partnership. And so I went to a party, and it's a community of people that know each other, and they put on these parties a couple times a year, and it's kind of vetted, so you can't like buy a ticket to this party. This one's an invite only, and you have to know somebody, and it was a new party community for me. And one of the things that I like to do, and as I go through this, I'm going to be giving you tips on how to show up in community to create value for the people in your life. The community wants you there, right? So if you're going to go into a space and you're just going to energetically take from the space, you're going to try to take towards you and extract, right? That is not going to work. And especially in the world of sexuality. Sexuality is very extractive. And, when I say extractive, we live in a world with porn that takes from female bodies, right? So, and the The term extraction or extractive is the act or process of pulling materials or natural resources or chemical components from larger sources, the earth or a substance, right? So I'm kind of using it in a different way, but it's like wanting to take the energy of another person and take it for yourself instead of being in awe and devotion and excitement and contribution and gifting to that experience. And so first and foremost, if you're going to be in a community, whether it's a sex positive community or not, if you just want to show up in community and have connection, because I think that's one of the most important things. Okay, if you're monogamous and you're like, Rose, I am never going to go to a sex party. So great. I support that 1,000%. And I also am going to encourage you strongly to have community, because I think relationships that don't have friendships and connections and depth with people outside, not sexual intimacy, but intimacy in general, like connection with other people, is not healthy, because that's monogamy that I don't think is healthy. When you expect your partner to provide all your needs all the time, constantly, right? You need friendships, you need relationships, you need to go outside of the relationship and get charged up and come back and bring that charge, whether it's guy friends or girlfriends, or like you go for a girls' weekend or a guys' weekend or whatever, right? So going back to bringing value and not fully extracting. And so extraction is, I'm going to show up and take up as much energy. Like I'm going to talk all about me, or I'm going to have all the energy on me and create a lot of like chaos, right? My invitation in order to create value in the community is to see where your gifts are and how you can bring them. And so for me, I love Damiana tea. Damiana tea is an herb that grows in Baja, Mexico, and it's an herbal aphrodisiac, and it really activates blood flow into your genitals. It really opens your heart. It makes you like, I gave it to a guy and he asked me what it was going to feel like, and then he came back and gave me feedback on the feeling, and he said that he felt present in his body, and he was like anchored in his body in a new way that he doesn't usually experience. And so it really helps you get out of your head, get out of your social anxieties, get into your body, anchor down, and connect with yourself. And so I love to bring Damiana tea to sex parties, because people get anxious, right? People at sex parties get anxious. They get in their head. They get overwhelmed. It's a lot of energy. There's a lot of frequency there. So in my offering, I wanted to bring in a tea party so that I could show up and provide value to the space. That was really important to me. And so I showed up and I brought in energy, and all the people there in my experience were so open and welcoming and kind and present and connected, and had been doing a lot of personal growth on themselves and really devoted to being a higher frequency human, like really committed to personal exploration and growth. And so everyone was just like so excited to be drinking my tea and to be having this new experience. And it was really sweet, and everyone's costumes were really fun. It was a really fun theme party, and everyone kind of went all out with the costumes and the play and like the expression. And a lot of them go to festivals, and so they kind of have that like festival energy there. And, there was some really fun performances. After the tea party, we did some really fun, beautiful singing and dancing and some fire dancing. And it was just like a really sweet community feeling. But the thing that was like so nourishing about this space is it wasn't about the sex. And, I've been to sex parties where it's just about the sex. And I'm not really interested personally, because I'm an intimacy coach. I'm much more into intimacy and depth and connection and vulnerability and authenticity. And I also want to say, like, it takes a lot. It takes a lot to be there, like to be vulnerable and authentic and real and honest. It's a brave person, and it's a person that's really done the work on themselves. And if you don't feel like that's something that you are, but you don't know how to be that and you deeply crave it, go to my website, roseheartsong.com, and just reach out to me. We can have a 30-minute chat and talk about how I can support you with that journey. It would be such an incredible honor to go on that journey with you. Anyway, so yeah, it was just like there was a DJ and there was people connecting and cuddling and playing and laughing and just like puddles of people on couches and sweetness and deep intimacy, and just to like be in that space and to feel that experience. I just was in so much awe. I was in so much awe of witnessing so much bliss and joy and connection and sweetness and silliness and sexiness and all the things around me. And I went there with a friend of mine. We are not dating. We're just friends. And I was like in this kind of playful, silly little girl, not like girl, but like silly, playful space, right? And I was like, let's go see what's happening around. Let's go see the sexiness that's going on, because a lot of the more erotic expressions were behind closed doors, in the more open spaces were a lot more just cuddling and silliness and fun and a lot of making out and stuff like that, but like not a lot of sexuality. And so yeah, we went upstairs and I went into this room, and I'd have to say this is probably a really beautiful, one of the most beautiful moments of my life. I mean, I've experienced a lot of sex parties before, and I've experienced experiences where it's very like the energy of porn, very performative, kind of chaotic energy. There wasn't any intimacy or heart connected. And the cool thing about this community is like people know each other, right? Like it's a private community. And so I got to witness this moment. I didn't join in, but I got to witness this moment where I just sat there and I just was in awe. And there was this big, beautiful bed, and it was just piled with people. There was probably like 9 or 10 people on a bed, and they were all having sex with each other. And the lighting was beautiful, and it was red. And the music was super sensual, and the energy in the room just kind of felt like this, like a velvet velour, erotic, sensual rose petal bliss. And it just it hit my heart just witnessing it. And I was just like, wow, I get to witness this moment. And there's very few people in the world that have the unique privilege of witnessing this moment, not only like being open and not being triggered and not being overwhelmed, but just receiving the beauty of what was in front of me. And, I think there are incredible works of art out in the world that have shown moments like this that are stunning, and they exist. And I want to share this with you here on Sex Ritual Radio, because I want to paint a picture of beautiful, erotic expression in community. I'm not saying you should go do it, but know that it exists if that's something that you deeply yearn for and desire, or create it, right? You can create those experiences with those around you. But the truth is like a lot of times in sexual positive spaces, there's a lack of connection and depth because the heart feels scared, right? It feels scared to be that vulnerable with somebody. And yet it's so beautiful. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, I think. And yet we're so like scared of that beauty. We're so scared of that intimacy and that depth and that vulnerability and that authenticity. And yet we deeply crave it. And we deeply yearn for it, and our cells ache for it. And yet, like, it petrifies the living daylights out of us, right? And so, yeah. And the other thing that I thought was so beautiful about this community is it was so consent focused, like incredibly consent focused, where everyone, if they wanted to touch my shoulder, they said, "Can I touch your shoulder?" If they wanted to touch my knee, they asked me to touch my knee. If anything done physically of any kind, there was a verbal request of I would like to do this. Would you like to? And then it has to be a full yes. It can't be like, like an is a no, right? That's a hard no. And so I think that was really, really amazing. And then I also loved that they talked about STI status. They really wanted to make sure that you got tested and had conversations about that. And I think that we as a community and culture need to have these conversations. Like if you're going to have sex with a new partner, before you have sex, before you allow the sexual action to happen, not like in it, you want to have these conversations. Like, when was the last time you got tested? What were the results? What did you get tested for? How often do you get tested? If you got tested, have you had sex with anyone since you got tested? And did you use condoms? Did you use protection? Like, having these authentic conversations is really, really important, to have safety in this container, right? Because a lot of times sexual health is the one that people get scared about, and testing happens. And, I talked to my gynecologist about this, and I was asking her, I was just like really curious. I was like, hey, like, just asking her about polyamory and open relationships and what she, on a scientific testing perspective. And she said that actually in her experience, people who are in the play party community and the poly community, they talk about their STI status more often and they get tested more often. So they actually are less likely to contract an STI and spread it than those who are monogamous, but like serial monogamous, right? So serial monogamous will have a relationship, and then they'll leave that relationship and then go to the next relationship. And then they go leave that relationship, go to the next relationship. And they usually don't use condoms because they're in a relationship. And sadly, a lot of times they don't talk about getting STI tested, and they don't talk about it. They haven't done it in a really long time, like years. They don't even think about it. And they like spread it from one person to the other. And the dangers of STIs, the more common ones, are like gonorrhea and chlamydia, is not having the disease. It's not treating the disease. Having the disease can be, or infection, sorry, it's an STI now, sexually transmitted infection. The infection is more dangerous if it's not treated than it is having it. And chlamydia, gonorrhea is just an injection that you get in your bum, and you just don't have sex for 7 days and it'll go away. Whereas before we had the medication for it, it could kill you. And so it is quite a gift to be able to have modern medicine to protect ourselves with that. And just because somebody's monogamous or non-monogamous doesn't mean that they don't have it. So it's really important to ask them, like, can you go get tested? And can I look at the test results and so forth? And then the other thing is really like processing your nervous system while you're at the party. So like I was going through some emotions while I was going through with my relationship with my body. And I was feeling so much bliss and gratitude and happiness. And then like a moment of grief would wash over me. And one of the things that's really important in that kind of space, or if anxiety or overwhelm, is like not ignoring it and trying to push it down. I mean, this is important in any area of life. Let's be real, especially when it comes to sex. And also it's really important in these kind of spaces to be able to regulate your own nervous system. And so in order to do that, I would just stop whatever I was doing, put my hand on my heart, hand on my belly, and take a deep breath and just be present with the emotion that's present in my body. So let's do that together right now. Let's take a deep breath. Inhale. And then exhale. If you're feeling anxious about what I'm talking about, if you're feeling overwhelmed about what I'm talking about, if you're feeling judgmental about what I'm talking about, right? Taking a deep breath into it. Inhale again. And then exhale. And just being with the emotion and the sensation in the body. And so intimacy and community. Intimacy in general is uncomfortable and scary and overwhelming. Intimacy and community is a whole nother level. And intimacy in the moment, right? So like a lot of times if we're intimate with somebody, right? If we're deeply connected, I like to think of intimacy as into me, I see, right? Into intimacy. Intimacy is allowing somebody to see you deeply. Let me look up I like to look at the definition or the etymology of a word. Intimacy definition is a close, familiar, or deeply personal connection with another person. It means feeling safe enough to share your true self, your private thoughts, and your vulnerable feelings. While people often think of romance or sex, true connection takes many forms. So the core types of intimacy or emotional, sharing deep fears, hopes, and secrets with trust. Physical, hugging, cuddling, holding hands, or sexual activity. Intellectual intimacy is exchanging ideas and respecting different views. And experiential is doing activities, hobbies, or daily life together. And it's really important to build trust and safety and bonds, improves mental health and physical well-being, and reduces loneliness and stress. And so the deep intimacy of, this space, the bravery that it takes to go deeply intimate in community is not something to take lightly, right? It's not everyone. Unfortunately, not everyone. I desire a world in which everyone is capable of doing this. That is what I stand for. I hope that everyone on the planet has the ability to have the experience that I had. And I understand that that's probably not going to happen, right? Like that is a little naive to think. And also it's possible, right? I'm not saying like the whole world's going to experience it. And what I'm saying is like that type of experience exists. It's possible. And so to connect and, okay, so in me speaking about intimacy, I'm going to be intimate with you right now. I am going to practice my own intimacy. So I have the ability to be intimate with anyone around me, right? I can show up, I can eye gaze, I can see their soul, I can connect with them. And I am not in partnership right now. And I work with a lot of couples that are in partnership. I work with couples that have been together for 7 years, 10 years, 18 years, 27 years, 32 years. Like that's a long time. I have been able to go, like last night, I went deeper with strangers than I've seen people in a marriage for 32 years go. So I don't think time is a factor in the depth of intimacy. I've been practicing intimacy in my beingness, in my life for a very long time. And I am not in partnership. And there is moments in which I feel insecure or I feel out of integrity because I'm not in partnership. And I work with couples who've been in partnership for a really long time, right? And I also know that I'm an incredibly spectacular coach, and my clients have massive breakthroughs in their intimacy, and they have better sex than they've ever had, and the closest experiences they've ever had, and try the funnest, newest, most epic things they've never even thought of doing before. And I know I'm good at what I do. And I also know that I am deeply programmed for the depths of profound devotional union. I know that I am built for devotional union. So I'm being intimate with you guys right now and sharing this story. And I met a gentleman last night. He was a gem of a man. He was like my dream man. Unfortunately, he flew in, and so long distance is not my favorite thing in the world. I'm not available for it. And the amount of depth and intimacy that we had together went pretty spectacularly deep for the short amount of time that we spent together. And he tied me up in shibari, and we went deep. Like we talked about our lives and our desires, and he asked me if I was wanting a relationship, and I said yes. I'm deeply desiring devotional union, and I am fully nourished and happy and fulfilled in my little life in Laguna Beach, in my studio apartment with my dog, helping other people. Like I get connection. I don't have any sexual relationship whatsoever in any way, shape, or form with my clients. And I also get moments of deep intimacy with them, right? And deep connection. And that fulfills me. And I have a very fulfilling and nourishing life. And so I am waiting for, like, I love the word devotional union. I think in the spiritual community, they say like sacred union, but I'm not really interested in that. It feels too like elevated and like put on a pedestal. I'm not interested in having a relationship on a pedestal. I'm interested in like devoting myself and being devoted to a union. And I'm deeply desiring that, but I'm not craving it, right? There's a difference between like this deep longing. And if I don't have it, I'm not fulfilled. I'm not happy. I'm not whole and complete. Like I am whole and complete. And I know that when I meet the right person, it'll create such a deep nourishment on my body and my life and my heart and my soul. And it'll expand me in my purpose in the world. It'll expand me in all areas of my life. And I'm available for it, but I'm not desperate for it. And I was sharing this with him last, as he was tying me up, and we talked about like my deep yearnings and the parts of him that are like perfect in my ideal life and what I desire in union. And it was like we went into this depths that I didn't even know was possible with a man that I had just met. And it was such a beautiful honor to have this experience. And we didn't even like do anything really. Like he tied me up in shibari and we like kissed for a minute, but like the amount of, we didn't do anything sexual at all. And the amount of intimacy that was present was beautiful and nourishing to the soul. And we also, my favorite experience was there was this like machine that's an electric machine. It like electrocutes you. This is very taboo and very kinky. Anyways, like some person put it in his pants. And so he became like this electrical machine. He became electrocuted. And then when you touched him, you would get like little shocks. And then when you touched him and then touched somebody else, you would shock them. And it would like move through you in this electrical machine. And we're all just like sitting in a circle, like half naked, giggling and laughing and shocking each other and like kissing each other and playing. And I just was sitting there also in this moment of like, wow, this is how adults play. This is so fun. This is so nourishing for the soul. And it was just such a beautiful, magical experience. And I just wanted to share that because I think we really need connection and community, whether we're making out with the person or just talking to them, right? We need that deep connection, like looking in each other's eyes, being present with each other, sharing what's truly authentic happening, like what's going on really in life. And so I want you to think about that, like where in your life are you deeply craving intimacy and connection? What are your boundaries around that? Like, your boundary might be, I will never go to a sex party in my life. And that's totally great. I support that 1,000%. Your no's are so an honor of mine. And also, in that, like, where are you, what fantasies live in your body that you'd like to actually fulfill? And what is the craving community? Where does the craving for your community like live? And how would you want what is your fantasy for community and connection? Whether that's erotic or not. What is that? And really think about it. And then think about like one way this week you can actually fulfill that fantasy and make it a reality. And what would it take within you to express it out loud, right? So part of desire is expressing it with your words and saying, hey, this is what I desire, and being open to rejection, but also being open to it happening, right? We're used to rejections and we're a little bit afraid sometimes to actually having it happen. So my intention and desire for this episode is that you are open to a new possibility about love and connection and intimacy and desire and play and all the things that are, super sweet in life and connection. And what is it like you would want to explore, and like what's something you want to try, and what is going to be your heart song? What lights your heart up and makes you feel alive and vibrant and activated and erotically turned on? Because you're like, erotic turn on is fun, y'all. It's a fun journey. And so this is Sex Ritual Radio, and this is Rose Heartsong, and this is KXFM. We are Laguna's Community Radio, and I am here every single Sunday from 9 to 10 p.m. And I like to talk about sex and anything taboo. So definitely, show up next week, and it's an honor to be here with you. Have an absolutely beautiful night.
I'm going to be real with you. I am so over sex being a taboo topic that we talk about. I am ready for conscious sexuality, spiritual sexuality to be a conversation in the room. I have been in so many rooms full of people. I share that I'm a sex coach, and people get awkward and shrink and get small around me. And I am so ready for that to be done. And it starts with you. In order to make this conversation bigger, this podcast gets to grow. In 2026, I am committed to impacting 100,000 people's lives with this, and I need your help. So would you please subscribe, leave a comment, share it on your Instagram story, or text it to a friend? It would mean the world to me, and I will see you next week.